Aloha Koa Pau. This is Kaiopua Fife with the Koani Foundation, bringing you another segment of Voices of Truth, one-on-one with Hawaii's future. Today we have with us Leon Hsu, and we just left a little gathering that we thought was pretty interesting. Leon, aloha.
Aloha.
Mahalo for taking the time to be with us today.
Sure, my pleasure.
I think probably we'd like to do a little recap of the forum that we just
All right.
came out of. What do you think?
Sure. We came out of a forum sponsored by the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, which is a conservative think tank here in Hawaii, one that has been very critical about the Akaka bill because of its racial content.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been very active in taking polls and in lobbying and writing a lot of letters. And in many cases, they have really taken to task this whole notion of Native Hawaiian and Native Hawaiian rights
Mm-hmm.
as sort of an offensive thing to the U.S. Constitution and how the U.S. sees, determines the issues of discrimination and rights. And so we were at a luncheon today.
And the other citizenry of Hawaii,
Correct.
Other than Hawaiian.
Right.
Hawaii, Kanaka
Right.
Maoli.
Yeah. They're very strongly pro-U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But an interesting thing is that regarding the Akaka bill, we end up, for different reasons, being on the same side, which is we're working to defeat the Akaka bill,
Mm-hmm.
or to stop passage of the Akaka bill.
Right.
And so we ended up being allies in this area. And the interesting, and again, you know,
What's the old saying about strange bedfellows?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But it also is that you get help where you can.
Yeah.
And as long as we can remain civil with one another and leave aside some of our other differences,
Mhm.
we can work together for the common good, or the common purpose,
Right.
which is, of course, to stop the Akaka bill from becoming law.
Yeah, so it's not just a matter of a lot of the Hawaiian nationals collaborating and coming together. I mean, it's really bigger. I mean, we've been working on the international level too, but here in Hawaii, there's a big critical mass that has to evolve and gel, kind of come together,
Right.
to help us achieve what we're going for Hawaii's future.
Yes. Well, anyway, I thought the forum went quite well. I was one of the speakers, one of the forum participants, and another man named Jerry, I can't remember his name, Kershaw
Yeah.
was the speaker from the Grassroots Institute.
Right.
And then we also had an interesting guest. His name is Zogby, John Zogby, of the famous Zogby polls.
Right.
And he was there to actually explain or present what the recent Zogby poll had found out about the Akaka bill.
Mm-hmm.
They had an actual poll taken here in Hawaii, and it showed that the majority of the people are opposed to the Akaka bill.
Right.
And so this was not news to us, but it was very good to have it confirmed by an international pollster.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, thank you for inviting me. I was glad that we were able to sit in because it was really some useful information, because when he essentially broke down the findings of the poll, I mean, it not only suggests that a majority of people in Hawaii oppose the Akaka bill, but there are also elements that direct maybe steps that should be taken. For instance, a vote. There was talk about a vote, and possibly looking at other ways of dealing with the issues.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a three-person or three-seated panel. But
actually,
there
it
was
was
a fourth
supposed
seat.
to be four, but Oha, who was supposed to be in that fourth seat, actually didn't show up.
I'll
At
be
the
darned.
last minute, they canceled out, and it was too late to find somebody else, although an effort was made. But yeah, the Office of Foreign Affairs simply did not want to obviously participate.
I
in
wonder
discussion.
if they had a family emergency or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I mean,
you're referring to the last time.
I say that kind of jokingly because a couple of years ago I was asked to speak at Harvard at an annual Asian Pacific gathering on law, international law. And we were notified 2 months in advance. And the OHA representative replied, after everybody had pretty much agreed to be there, that there was a family emergency that was going to prevent. So, you know, I think it's good.
2 months in advance.
If you know in advance, 2 months, I think is a lot easier to deal with.
And it's also not quite an emergency, is it?
Well, I don't know. Depends on how you schedule them.
Yeah.
But, so there was an empty seat there. And then one of the seats was occupied by a pollster, who I want to say, I think did a pretty good job. You know, I'm kind of suspicious of polls, but you know, the way it was presented, it seemed pretty clean cut, not slanted. Sometimes you can spot slants. And then you had Jerry Kershaw and yourself. So the pollster, I think, did nothing but gather the information and then interpret it for the first poll. So then actually we really had two people, yourself and
Jerry,
and Jerry there for giving perspectives. And of course there was some participation from the audience too, which was kind of cool. But how did you see the relationship between what you had to present and what Jerry had to present?
I thought it was quite good because the basis of our objection as Hawaiian nationals and as independence, members of the independence movement, is that this is a totally unacceptable measure in its very core, because it misrepresents who we are, and it does not address the real problem. And now, so Jerry also said that this misrepresents us, the general public, as well as the Native Hawaiians, and it doesn't address the real problem. And it's an insufficient solution. And so the question came up as to then why are Akaka and Inoue so adamant about pushing the solution? And of course, you know, the answer is political reasons. It actually helps to establish the establishment, to help them to consolidate their and reinforce their position. And that position is that they have total sway over Native Hawaiian issues and Hawaiian in general. But this particular bill, what came out in the discussion also, is particularly problematic for the democratic machine, and particularly for Inoue and Akaka, because they have been relying on this and relying on their strength as basically the machinery that runs Hawaii, and in many ways being very arrogant about their ability to get this passed. And after 10 years of promising or reinforcing and reassuring the people that this is going to pass, don't worry about it.
It's going to be good for everybody.
It's going to be good for everybody. Every time they came close to passing, it failed. And more questions were raised. Well, this last go-around, they were anticipating getting this passed before Christmas. They were going to, December 24th, they were going to get it passed by that date. And lo and behold, they pulled a fast one 2 weeks before that, which alarmed a whole bunch of people, including us.
And including supporters.
And including supporters. So we actually raised the alarm, and as a result, it caused questions to rise from the supporters of the bill, and it actually drove a wedge in between those supporters and Akaka and Inoue. So the state of Hawaii has withdrawn its support and has suggested strongly that they have hearings held in Hawaii before it goes any further. Because what had happened with the incident in mid-December was there was an effort to amend the bill. Actually, the Senate amended the bill, the House didn't, which sets up a whole nother problem for them. But the amendment itself was out of left field, and it did not include most of their supporters. It was a very closed session, kind of in
well, I think
back room kind of deal.
Yeah, I think left field was Robin Danner, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, and Colin Kippen. I understand it was back there. There may have been a few others, but those are the two names that come to mind.
So in essence, they were pulling a fast one. They were doing a bait and switch at the last minute, and they were caught at it. And so what happened was that the governor was very, very upset that they had been excluded from any of the discussion, and that this bill had actually was not what the state of Hawaii had bought into.
Right.
And so have several other supporters in Washington, D.C. So the bill is now in quite a bit of trouble.
Well, you know, one of the interesting things in looking at the two perspectives, yours and Jer's, Gershel's perspective, was that if you filtered through everything and got to the end, there was, there was opposition to the bill on both sides. Jer's perspective seemed to be totally within the box of the Akaka bill. So, I mean, and your perspective is that the Akaka bill is kind of incidental to the real issue.
Right.
And so I think that was the biggest separation, because the more I heard him speak, the more I heard him saying what you were saying.
Yes.
You know, except for the international perspective.
Uh-huh.
So he was, that was the only difference
Right.
that I noticed.
Yeah, so the only difference was that he doesn't think that the Hawaiian nation still exists. Well, actually, he did concede at one time, sort of saying, yeah, it still exists, but
Right.
but he doesn't think that that is the important issue.
Right.
The important issue he sees is the internal workings of law here
Yeah.
in Hawaii.
Yeah, domestic
Law,
approach.
yes.
The other thing that I noticed, and he repeated it several times, in denouncing the applicability, was that he said, you know what's going to happen is you're going to have 9 Kakabil Ali'i
Yeah.
who are going to make every decision about what happens to the lands and who can belong to the tribe. And one thing he missed is that it's not just the 9 Ali'i. I mean, actually, they're down a step,
Right.
because the Department of Interior is going
Right.
to be the one that really
Right.
dictates. You
And
know?
Congress's plenary powers
Yeah.
over that.
Yeah,
You
but
know.
he did get it right that at any moment, all bets can be off,
Right.
and everything can be
Yeah.
can be changed.
Right. And the thing that bothers me, of course, about the recent changes is that it does create an instant Indian tribe or Hawaiian tribe.
That was a
And-
major amendment, right?
Right. And by doing that, what they've done is that they said, we don't care how long the negotiations go on for the governing entity. We're going to start the tribal entity right now, and it's going to be in charge by a hired, contracted organization, CNHA. And so
Council
this,
for Native Hawaiian Advancement.
yes,
Yeah.
and so this is what is really bothersome to us, is that they're already, rather than even abiding by the Akaka Bill's purpose to form a Native Hawaiian government, they're going to activate a form of government earlier,
A tribal form.
a tribal form, which
Right.
gives them no compunction to actually negotiate
Yeah.
for the other thing, which we oppose anyway. But,
Right. Right.
but it just, knowing that this kind of negotiations can drag on for years.
Yeah.
I mean, we could be looking at another 117 years of just being negotiated, meanwhile being represented by a council of chiefs
Yeah. Yeah.
that we didn't elect.
Yeah. And a council of chiefs who is subject to
Yeah, to
Department of Interior, Congress, and everybody else
Right.
who wants to jump in and
Right.
meddle. Yeah.
One of the things that he brought up also was that this system that's in place with the Native Americans is totally inadequate
Sure.
and bad for them anyway. And there are all kinds of problems with it. And so why would we want to create this system for us and have it automatically created without our consent
Yeah.
or our participation?
Well, it seemed to me that there was a lot of support. Well, actually, at the end of the gathering, there was an ask for a show of hands of all who oppose the Akaka bill. And it looked to me like it was 100%. You were sitting in
Yeah.
front, you could see them, I was looking around. I
Right.
didn't see anybody who didn't have their hand up. So I think that's kind of reassuring that although some of our Hawaiian National may not be comfortable with some of the people who are in that room, they can definitely have a sway or help us to sway and
Yes.
achieve in opposing the Akaka bill right now.
Right. the key thing is that those people in that room, which is basically a conservative Republican group of people, do have access to the people who can help us in Congress as well as locally in the state government. So Linda Lingle and then many of the congressmen, even though it's a predominantly Democratic Congress, there are influential Republican congressmen who are pretty powerful themselves, who can, you know, raise enough of an objection to get in order to get the hearings here in Hawaii.
Right, right.
And of course, we are counting on the fact that once a hearing is held in Hawaii, it's all over for the Akaka bill. If you recall, there was 2 years ago when the supposed settlement was announced between OHA and the state over the ceded lands. And there was a hue and cry against that settlement because it was a $200 million settlement for all the lands of Hawaii. And you know, a number of people, including OHA board members or former board members of OHA, stood up as former trustees. You know, stood up and said, wait a minute, you know, first we need to have an audit. And there was a hue and cry for this audit. And then, the Senate President Hanabusa picked up on it, and she was pushing it, and then suddenly it kind of went away. And the excuse was there was already an audit scheduled for 2009. And so what's happened to that audit? It actually supposedly has been finished, and it shows gross negligence and mismanagement of OHA's funds. It was finished in September, but we've never seen any publication of that.
No, somehow we accessed elements of it. And it doesn't paint a pretty picture, but I think it's
something that we really need to bring out. And obviously, Senator Sloan is not familiar that the audit was done, and that it is very, very damaging to OHA. But somebody's sitting on it and not letting it
Well,
out.
I think it's an internal audit, and what he's calling for is something from the outside that goes in and checks it out. So, and so I think that's good, and I think that's a great outcome. And then there were a couple of other people. Well, the very last person who got up and made a comment just said, we want to vote on it. Yeah, we want to vote here in Hawaii. So, you know, I think it was interesting to see the singleness of thought. We need hearings, you know, we need votes, and this bill needs to be opposed. You know, needs to be put down finally and forever. I think it was a good panel, and I think it was a good discussion. I think it was, unfortunately, a one-sided panel, and I wish we could have had someone from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs there. When I talked with Senator Sloan afterwards, he mentioned, once again, OHA not showing up, and he says, well, it's kind of a pattern now. You know, they pick their venues, they rent their you know, they pay for their TV, commercial television.
Yeah, obviously. The
shows.
night before, of course, they ran a 2-hour or hour-long.
Yeah, exactly. But they won't show up and talk to us face to face. But I mentioned to him, but I said, but do you realize the real power behind the throne now is Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. OHA just exists because they happen to have a budget and they're a component of the state government. So they've been kind of stepchildren as far as Senator Inouye and Senator Akaka. That's my perspective on it. You know. So anyway, I think it's I was happy to be able to be there with all the stuff that's going on. I think it was an important place to be because, as you mentioned, you know, over some period of time, you've been active enough to understand that there's kind of a transition. Some of our language, our terminology is starting to weave its way into the language of these people who are there today. And that's what it's about, you know. You have to interact with people, and if what they have to share rings true, you start to adopt some of their ways of thinking, their perspectives, And that's what I think is happening.
And this is one of the things that was expressed several times to me by members of the Grassroots Institute today. Was that, wow, they finally were able to actually hear from our side. You know, and because of the circumstances, not different from their side.
Yeah.
But you know, they do know that we have some differences that we're going to
Sure.
have to eventually reckon with.
Yeah.
But we know we can talk about it. And we can work it out.
Yeah, everybody was pretty adult about it, you know, and I think it's what we have to be able to do is sit down and talk with those who have a different way of viewing than we do. And really, I think that our cause really is so just, and what we have to say is just the truth. That to me, it's a pretty easy sell.
Yeah.
You know, once you expose the true history and the facts, it's a pretty easy sell. So, once again, I appreciate us being there today, and thanks for the invitation. We've got a lot to look forward to over this weekend. We pretty much covered that forum. I mean, I think there's going to be some follow-up. You've actually been invited to go on the radio show with
Rick Amata.
Rick Amata. And so I hope we know in advance enough
Yes.
so that we can have people listening in and calling in and participating in the discussion.
Right.
You know, when I was at home quite a bit and I had the time, I used to listen religiously and call in, and it gives you an opportunity to
Sure.
you know, share your voice. So I'm looking forward
And
to
also,
you representing us there.
Yeah. Also, I taped a brief segment for Fox News.
Good.
So that hopefully we'll get on sometime fairly soon.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that just about winds up this segment. Mahalo again, Leon. Thank you so much. And we'll be seeing you throughout the next century, probably. And we hope that you folks will continue to tune in to Voices of Truth, One-on-One with Hawaii's Future. I'm Kaiopua Fife with the Kiwane Foundation, Hui Ho.